Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I just wanted to clarify a couple things. We know that this is a statewide problem. It was stated by one of my colleagues when we first started third reading that 60% of use of force complaints occur in rural Minnesota. And in the study that was also mentioned about the 195 officer-involved deaths in the last 20 years, 31% of those occurred in rural Minnesota, 37% in the suburbs, and only 17% in Minneapolis. And so we know that these are problems statewide. And I myself, I grew up in rural Minnesota in a tribal community. I'm from Leech Lake. And if you don't think that this is a problem in rural Minnesota, I encourage you to talk to some folks who live in those communities, because it absolutely is a problem. And I could go on and on with examples from honestly my entire lifetime that have occurred to the folks that I grew up with and the families that I know. And also, I just want to clarify that I heard my colleagues talking a lot about the bill itself and the things that we're all proud about in this bill. I heard my colleagues talking about their families and their children and their constituents, and I didn't hear anybody saying derogatory things about police officers or calling anybody racist. That isn't what happened in this debate thus far. So certain politicians over and over continue to want to divide us based on who we are and where we live. And I always think that's kind of funny because it's usually framed as like this urban-rural thing. And I'm always like, whether it's in Environment Committee or Public Safety Committee, like, hello, the suburbs exist too. A lot of your colleagues here in the legislature represent the suburbs. We do exist, and we don't fit into those other categories. And sort of to that, suburban moms can speak for themselves, and we're much more diverse than you'd think. Our Lieutenant Governor, also, I'm looking at my seatmate, Representative Moeller, and Representative Dr. Mann and Representative Richardson, and there isn't sort of this monolithic group that sometimes gets referred to. We speak for ourselves, and we care a lot about our communities. We care hard. You should see some of the work that's done by the folks in our communities. And what I've heard over and over again from suburban moms in my community and really throughout the country is that they believe that Black lives matter. I believe that Black lives matter. And this shouldn't really be a revolutionary thing to say, but it sometimes gets treated as if it is. And honestly, it's sort of shameful how those three words have been used against people like me in campaigns, and they probably will be used against others in the future. And I really urge everybody in this body to reject that, because it shouldn't be offensive or controversial to state that our fellow human beings' lives mean something. But it does need to be said, because our systems and our culture tell our Black friends and colleagues every single day that maybe their lives don't matter. In maternal death rates, in police brutality, in educational disparities, in housing disparities, in wealth disparities, in all those ways, our friends and neighbors are told that maybe their lives don't matter. And so let me say it again, because apparently it does need to be stated, and it's been stated really in a really beautiful way throughout my community, my suburban community, that Black lives matter, period. And moms everywhere across our state, across this country, across the globe, when they watched that video, they heard George Floyd cry out for his mom. And if those of you who are parents, and especially mothers there's nothing I wouldn't fight harder for than for my kids. And so to hear a man in his last seconds of life cry out for his mom, that was a cry to all moms. And we heard that call, and now is the time to heed that call, to answer really the demands that we're hearing from our communities for justice. And we have a chance to answer this call tonight by voting for this bill. It's a good bill, and I will be so proud to stand with all of my colleagues in the Posse Caucus and everyone who has worked on this bill, all the people who have reached out to us, who have testified, who have sat in the gallery tonight. I will be really proud to vote in support of this bill, and I hope that you will too. Miigwech.
The member from Stearns, Representative